Hello, I'm Dee Blake with the League of Women Voters. Today we're here with Gary Dye, who is running for the House State Legislature, District 48. This is part of the 2016 Video Voters Guide, and we're here in Gresham, Oregon at the MetroEast Community Media Center. So good to have you with us.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. Gary, is it okay if I call you Gary?
Yes.
Okay,
definitely.
Great. Fantastic. I'd like to talk a little bit, just very briefly, because some of the voters out there, surprisingly, might not know what District 48 is. Just kind of generally, what are the geographical boundaries?
District 48 is basically outer southeast side Portland and spilling over into Clackamas County and Happy Valley area.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. And you are seeking this position, running against the incumbent and some other candidates, I understand. Okay, great. If elected, what would be your priorities for this district? Do you have specific goals you have in mind that have led you to seek this office?
Well, I think a general issue that concerns people in my district and pretty much everybody else is that I believe, as most libertarians believe, that government is too big, getting into too many things, getting into things that they don't do best, that should be left in the private sector. And we are seeing the result of this in higher and higher and higher taxes of any shape and size that you can possibly think of from every single branch of government.
Okay.
If you'll notice, candidates and everybody else involved with government, that everyone is trying to think up new and novel ways of taxing. You know, just a little bit over here and a little bit over there, supposedly that people aren't going to notice, and therefore it's almost like free money. And I understand the concept of incrementalism, but when you take the summation of all those incremental taxes from everywhere you can possibly think of, there's just this huge amount of money coming from the private sector, coming from the taxpayer, and going into government to do all these things. And I think it's gone way past where it should be. That needs to be stopped. It needs to be cut down. We need to have different kinds of priorities on what government really should be doing, and let the private sector and let individuals handle the rest.
Okay, all right. A little bit about your background. And this is, you're new to seeking office, I gather?
I sought office, I think Metro District 7 in '98, and then I moved to Houston, and I ran for U.S. Rep in Texas. Since I've always had libertarian type of thinking, you know, libertarians are never voted in. That's fine, or it's not fine, but that's the way it is. I enjoy, I think, running. I think I'm trying to do good by offering other kinds of solutions and ideas for government to do that you're just not going to be hearing from Republicans or Democrats.
Okay.
So I find it very interesting. I like running.
And professional and other background that might give you a skill set that you would see necessary?
I grew up in Outer East Side, Portland. My dad still lives in the house I grew up in 60 years later. And went to David Douglas High School, and I was one of these geeky guys. I think I was voted Albert Einstein of 1977, one of those guys. Went to Oregon State, chemical engineering, got into the oil refining business, decided I hated it, and wanted to get back to Portland, which does not have oil refineries. It took a long, long time. Went to Saudi Arabia to work for a while, and went to law school, got an MBA to try to be an entrepreneur, got degrees in math and science to try to get into academia. Any way to get out of Houston and Los Angeles and back
Okay.
to Portland, and I finally did it by working for the gas company, and that lasted about 12 years, and I
Okay.
filed whistleblowing
Okay.
with the PUC and ended up getting terminated for my whistleblowing activities.
Okay. So lots of degrees.
Yes.
And a lot of different backgrounds.
Technical background,
Okay.
yes.
Well, let me ask you some specific issue-related questions. One of the things that is before the voters this election will be Measure 27, which is the tax bill, if I summarize
97.
it. Measure 97,
Yes.
excuse me, is that what he said? Yes. If it doesn't pass, it's predicted that there'll be a budget shortfall, especially in the area of education and social services. Given your background, your philosophy, how do you believe as the legislature you would address or should address a shortfall in these areas?
The predicted shortfall is because revenue does not match spending.
Okay.
And I do not believe, I think revenue is way, way too high in all its various forms. Therefore, the obvious thing to do, since we cannot run deficits, is to cut back on spending. And I think there is a whole lot of room that the state can do to cut back on its spending.
Okay. Any particular areas?
I would say almost every area. And again, one of the other things I don't like about Measure 97 and its tax is that it's just not honest.
Okay.
I mean, basically it is a sales tax. It's a different form. It's not point of sale. Here's 3% or 5% or whatever it's going to be. It is figuring out how much the sales were, and then at the end of the year, you put a tax on that. So the voter doesn't see it. And that's so very typical of government that they want to convince the voters that your taxes aren't going to be increased. We're going to get the money from over there. Mm-hmm. And the other technique is to tell the taxpayer, oh, we're going to give you a lot of the money out of the pot, okay, not other people. That's the game that government is playing, okay, and I think there's just way too much of that.
Okay. Well, we don't have much time here. Let me ask you a couple of other things that are certainly pressing in the greater Portland area. And one of that is the issue of homelessness and affordable housing. Would you envision as a state legislature a statewide approach to dealing with these issues?
One of the statewide approaches is, why is housing unaffordable? Well, it's because people don't have enough money to pay their rent or pay their mortgage, or the houses and rent cost too much, so there's a gap there. And what is government doing on those two fronts? Well, they keep increasing taxes. They keep taking money out of people's pockets so they don't have enough money to spend on this, that, and the other thing, including rent and mortgages. So what are they doing about that? Well, Portland is adding a tax on the construction of housing. In other words, increasing the cost of housing. And the pretext on that is they take the money and build affordable housing. But the affordable housing they build is incredibly expensive, like $200,000 a unit. We're talking about apartments. And because they have to do all these politically building codes on environmental this and that, and also they have to use prevailing wages. So it becomes very expensive. Mm-hmm. That doesn't sound like a very good solution. Mm-hmm. And, you know, affordable housing becomes a lottery. Only certain people that win the lottery get to be in these nice affordable places, and everybody else is on the street. Okay. And the homeless situation, you know.
Well, we're going to actually wrap there,
exactly.
Unfortunately. I wish we had more
there
time.
There are all kinds of solutions to these that you're not going to get from Republicans or Democrats. Okay. That's why you should vote for somebody maybe with alternative type of ideas.
Well, thank you, Gary.
Yes.
And thank you for viewing today. This is the League's, Oregon Women League of Voters, Video Voters Guide. I urge you to vote on November 8th and to register by October 18th. Thank you for viewing.